Well, the basic family structure is from the state of Oklahoma, but somehow Mother managed to get over into Texas, and I was born in Decatur, Texas, which is not too far from Dallas and Fort Worth. I have no remembrance of being there. It's just on my birth certificate. However, we did move to Vernon, Texas, and that's where we went to school. We made friends, we went to church. We did all of the fun things that kids do growing up together. My mother worked hard without a husband. We were left alone a lot. And because we were somewhat mischievous, we got into a lot of things that, as I grew older, I realized was not helping my poor mother, because we were doing a lot of damage to the house and what have you. For instance, one day she came home and there was flour all over the house. And she said, "What is this?" And we said, "Well, it's been snowing." And of course, that was wasting money, wasting food and what have you. But my brother and I am 2 years older than he is. He was born in January and I was born in February. But we loved each other because it seemed that in that time that she was working and we were left alone, we were each other's world. And so we did things together, we played together, and then there were times that we even fought each other, but we wouldn't let anybody else fight us. But at the time that he began to beat me up, the fighting quit. And I thought it was time for both of us to grow up. But my mother worked hard to teach us basic things like reading, writing, math, so that by the time we got to school, we already knew all of that. And with me being older, of course, I went to school first, but my brother became lonely, as my mother said, without me. So the next year she put him in school, even though it wasn't quite time. And of course he kept up because he's a very bright young man. And I was double promoted once and left him. And then another time he was double promoted. And then by the time we got to what is now called middle school, junior high school, he was double promoted again. And from that point on, about the 7th or the 8th grade, we were in school together through the remaining of high school and into college. We once lived on a street called Will Barker, and I think that was the name of the street or the name of the county. We were alone at that time, and that's when we were getting into lots of trouble and what have you. But eventually, Mr. Jesse came on the scene, because at Christmas time and birthday times he would come by and he'd bring us gifts. I remember crates of oranges and apples and things like that. So he was a man, but we didn't quite know what the connection was until we moved to Wheeler Street, which was near the high school that we were going to attend much later. But with him being in the house so often, we had to figure out that he was the new man or the new husband or whatever. But for some reason, it doesn't seem as though Mother told us about them getting married, which they did, because I saw the their marriage certificate later. But he was a gentleman. Never raised his voice to either of us. Never fussed at us, complained about anything. But he was the real father figure in our lives, because our other fathers only came around at certain times. And I knew that Henry was our father, but we didn't live with him. We never lived with him. So all the things that we got in life, all of our clothing, all of the food that we ate, all of the fun things that we did, came from our stepfather, whose name was Jesse Walker. And he put us through school, worked on the railroad very hard. And now Mother would fuss at us, and spank us. But he never did that, and he was always there for whatever we needed. A very kind, patient, understanding man. Personally, I don't really know who Roosevelt Johnson is. I've just heard of him recently, and I heard through my brother and through a funeral program that he is the father of my brother. And I'd never heard of anything like that before. I always assumed that we had the same father, the same mother. And today I still feel that way, but I don't have any proof. All I know is that this program was there. My brother says that's his father. Oh yes, you can't forget that kind of thing. It was not only cotton pulling, but cotton picking and chopping cotton. And we did all of it. I didn't like it, not only because of the kind of work that it was, but it happened during school time. And one of the things I finally convinced my mother that I would chop cotton, which takes place in the summertime, if she would let me go to school. Now, it seems as though my brother didn't mind being out of school, so he stayed and he would pull cotton or pick cotton, depending on what was happening. I did manage to get to go to school, but I would chop cotton in the summertime to make up for it. It was one of those things that we needed because we needed money. And that was one of the few ways that you could get it. My mother, because she did not finish school, I think she made it to 8th grade, she had this deep desire that her children go farther and do more than she had done. And therefore, she took the time, the patience, the energy to teach us basic reading, basic math, spelling, writing. And as I said, by the time we actually entered public school, we knew all of the things that kindergartners, first graders, second graders would be learning in school. Okay. We had been in school together since 7th or 8th grade. And I don't know why he said he was surprised, because Mother had always stressed that we were going to school. And so it was just understandable as far as I was concerned. In fact, when we got ready to pack our bags or our little trunks, he got all of the new sheets and the pillowcases and the blankets and all of that kind of thing. And Mother packed my trunk with the things that were around the house. And but it was okay. He was my brother and I love him anyway. But when we came back at the end of our freshman year, he didn't have any new sheets and blankets and whatever, so she had to buy more for him. But I think with us being together like that, he felt somewhat like he was my protector, but it also, I believe, I kept him in school because he was young. He had graduated from high school at 14, and that's very young, very young. And so I encouraged him and worked with him to make sure that he stayed there. I just know that my brother was a very personable person, wonderful personality. Not only did he get along with the young ladies, but he was also a friend to young men. People liked him. He was a natural. Just as he was naturally smart and brilliant, he was naturally a humanitarian, a person who liked people and got along well with people. He got his degree in math, which I wanted to have a degree in because I liked math. But we had been together all along, and I decided we needed to separate somewhere. So I chose English as my major, and he majored in math. And of course, that probably was better for him because he went into computers and science and those kinds of things. Okay. On the day that we graduated, I remember that he came to me and he said, "Well, sis, it's time for us to go meet the bear." And he meant the world, because I feel we had been kind of pampered and sheltered over the years, and so we stuck close to each other. But we knew that as adults now, it was time for us, especially since I was engaged, and he was going to do whatever he was going to do, that we were going to be going our separate ways. But as I remember, he was at the wedding, because we graduated in May, and then in June I was married, June 23rd. And I say that because years later I was separated on June 23rd. But anyway, he was part of the wedding, and he looked at my husband at that time, and he told him to take care of me, or he would he would be there to see why he wasn't. But anyway, he went on. We went to Kansas, my husband and I, and he came to California. At that time, as far as I remember, he worked for Edwards Air Force Base. And by the time we left Kansas and we went to Cleveland, Ohio, first to Toledo and then to Cleveland, he came through Cleveland on his way to New York, stopped by to see me, because he said he didn't really like California. And of course, I'd never been there, so I didn't know. But we had a short visit with each other, and later on, I did see him in New York in his little home that he bought. He let us stay in it for a while. And then he was working somewhere in Manhattan in a computer place. But after that, I'm not really sure. Now, this is taking us back to Prairie View, because while at Prairie View, during my junior senior year, I ran for Miss Prairie View and ended up as number 2. But in the meanwhile, we had to make a presentation in Dallas, Texas. So all the buses were loaded on the campus, football team, the band, everybody going to Dallas. Well, he didn't ride the bus. Some kind of way he got to Dallas by hitchhiking or what have you. And then when it was time to leave and ready to come back, he let a few buses leave the campus. And then he came, my bus is gone, my bus is gone. So nobody wanted to leave him in Dallas, so they stuck him on a bus, and therefore he got a ride back, but he hitchhiked to Dallas. And of course, he wanted to see his sister and enjoy all the activities. But that was just my brother, full of imagination, full of fun, a little devilish, but a lovable person. Well, they didn't, but there was the chaplain at the school. His name was Phillips, Reverend Phillips, as we called him. A very distinguished, unique, special kind of person. He taught a class or so on Negro history, Black history. I took the class. I don't know if my brother took the class. There weren't a lot of classes being taught, but we had Black teachers who instilled pride in us. In fact, even from elementary, junior, senior high days, we had teachers who continued to make sure that we felt good about ourselves. We learned as much about our race and our heritage and our culture as possible. But they didn't just have lots of classes on Black history, but this one individual, Reverend Phillips, did teach classes, and they were quite good. I know that my brother Clark did things that way, and he would mostly tell me about them after he had done them. I remember that Clark went to Mississippi with some other young men, and they went down to register Black people to vote. My brother Clark may have shared more of that kind of thing with our mother. Also, he had a lot more experience in traveling around and doing different kinds of jobs, meeting a lot more people than I did. He used to call me the book learner. And he said, yeah, you're smart, but you have to study, and you get most of your information from books, whereby he got most of his information from being with the people. And that does make a difference, because I was not out there, even though I've always been proud of being Black and knowing that I was Black. No one had to tell me that. And I had information about historical things that have happened. I didn't feel that anyone was pressuring me or making me be something that I wasn't. But as I said, our lives began to be a little different after college, And so therefore he was involved in things that I was not involved in. But so I can't really say that I know a lot about what he was doing or how he was feeling, but he did share things with me. But he never seemed to have been dissatisfied with what he was doing, or even with himself. You know, I just remember that black people in general were at unrest, so to speak. 65 in particular was the time of the first Watts riot. And I think black people were beginning to learn more about themselves, beginning to be concerned about the world around them and things that were happening. So he was just doing what everyone else was doing, you know, except maybe by his being the kind of person that he was, more concerned, he got more involved. But he didn't always tell me about everything that he did. Like, he didn't tell me that he was arrested 4 times. I did not know that. I don't know whether it's forever I'm taking that. But anyway, I knew that he had been arrested, but not that frequently, okay? Yes, but he didn't necessarily tell me what he was doing or why he was going. Well, he had come to visit me in my hometown before he went back to New York. In fact, that's the last time I saw my brother outside prison. And he was a wanderer. He almost, that's why I think Henry Squire was his dad rather than this other man, because my dad was a wanderer. He couldn't stay in one place for a long time. And even though he'd come to see, he just kind of disappeared one night, and I just got in my car going to look for him. And I went out onto one of the long streets in the area and driving toward Compton. And I looked, and there he was on the street coming back home. He was alone, you know, just himself. And I said, "Where have you been?" He just wanted to see what was happening and that kind of thing. And then, of course, he did go back to New York after that point. And he told me about his joining the Panthers. He joined them because they were the kind of group that he felt would do something for the black people and was doing something for the black people, helping the race. He felt that everything, you know, was for a good cause. And then later, I'm not sure who told me about my brother. I'm really not sure, because it could have been one of the ladies he knew. But I did find out that he had been arrested. And I think they call it something the 21, something 21. But anyway, I didn't think it was as serious as it turned out to be, because I know black men get arrested for lots of things, whether they are guilty of the things that they're arrested for or not. But I began to read some things in the paper. There was a little booklet put out. And I just expected him to be there a short while. I just had no idea it was going to stretch out into the number of years that it has been. And after a while, then we started to visit him. And I don't know, it bothers me because I don't see why he's still in prison. I really don't. I don't know anything that he's done or even been accused of that would keep him in prison like this and for so long. So we do talk now, and I do visit him, and I do write him. I get more information to him through writing. But back to that particular day and time, it might have been Joyce who told me about it first. But in prison, you can't talk freely. So I never really heard from my brother, or have heard to this day, his view of what happened and his reasoning as to why he thinks he's still in prison. I know that he's tried for parole several times. And I've told you this, that it bothers me because I don't know how to help him. I don't know how to really feel about what's going on, because I don't know the real facts, or I don't know the facts from him, who is my brother. There had to have been some dialogue between them, because my mother, being the proud black woman that she is, was crushed with all of this, literally crushed. I do believe, and I've always said this, that the sickness that my mother took on after he was arrested and put in prison caused her cancer, caused the other things that she's gone through. She wouldn't talk to people about him, and it wasn't that, maybe it was part shame. I won't say it that she wasn't ashamed, but it was almost for a while that he didn't exist. Not that she didn't love him or anything like this, but when people would ask about him, she couldn't tell them that he was in prison. She was that hurt. And it took a long time. It took years before she could come out and just admit to herself that her son, because with her upbringing and the times in which she lived, these kinds of things like daughters getting pregnant, sons going to prison and jail, those were things that families didn't want to happen to them. But because she was internalizing it, it was harmful to her body. So yes, she had to have talked to him somewhere, and maybe it was just through letters, maybe it was, I don't remember telephone calls, but maybe it was the few times that we visited in the prisons, that, because he was her number one child. I was born first, but he was her pride and joy. And I did manage to get through school being good, and I didn't get pregnant, so I didn't bring that onto the family. But with him being in prison, she saw that as a blemish, even though she may not have been admitting all of this, but she was holding it in and harming herself in the process. But as the years went by, she began to release it and realize that this was her son, her one and only son. And it's just that I wish he had gotten out before she got into the state that she's in now. So how they talked, other than telephone, letters, or face-to-face in prison, I don't know, but they did. They had to. Mother never said that she was harassed, and of course, if she were, she probably wouldn't have recognized it. I do remember little things like someone being on the telephone or calling and not answering or saying anything, in great numbers. But I'm not necessarily street smart, but I was concerned, but I didn't associate it with my brother. It could have been that, but no one ever came to me face to face, or no one ever said anything to me, say on the telephone, that would make me think it's a direct confrontation because of my brother. I don't remember anything. I do remember just little strange things happening with the telephone over a period of time. But I associated that with just anybody, and Mother never said. Of course, she was closed-mouthed about a lot of stuff once he got in prison. So, but she never said anything to me about anyone actually bothering her. Well, I do recall that he had some ailments, and he didn't always get the medical attention that he needed, and not immediately. Okay, I think in time he would get the medicine. I think he had tuberculosis at one time, some other things that were happening to him, but. And I don't know, maybe even I was asked to write a letter or do something. I do remember that he needed some help with medications and what have you. And it seems as though once or twice I wrote some letters, and I never talked to anyone personally. And then, of course, his friend Joyce also helped him a lot. In fact, she was able to visit him more often and see him at times when I could not see him. But yes, he did have some problems there with getting assistance and help. I remember reading about it. In fact, he would send me materials, and I remember getting a book or being referred to a book called the Hurricane 21 or something to that effect. And sometimes I wouldn't read it right away because I guess I was being like my mother to a degree. Some kind of way he told me that he was not released. Okay. Because in the early days he didn't talk to me by telephone that much. Now he talks to me by telephone and occasionally letters. But back in those days, it was mostly letters, or I would learn things through Joyce. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why he wasn't released. But I think at that time I began to be a little bit concerned that all of the others were released. And I didn't know whether he was a scapegoat or whether he was guilty. I just knew that he was my brother and still in prison when everybody else was gone. And I have materials at home that he's shared with me and other people. And sometimes I'll read it and sometimes I won't. He didn't ask for money, not from me. I think he did rent the house out because one of the times that I went there, he allowed my former husband and I and some friends to stay there while he was somewhere else. And Mother may have sent him money. As I said, with the state of mind that she had, she didn't like to talk about it a lot. More recently, he has begun to save money, and he sends it to me, and I have it in an account for him. I let him call me free. I told him, don't ever call me, and collect. Pay for it. Occasionally he will do this, but he's asked for, once he needed some cigarettes, little things like that. And I sent him money for cigarettes, but he's never asked for big money. And I do know that some people give him money. Okay, no, he didn't ask for any money then. No. He may have been renting the house out and doing odd jobs and that kind of thing, but he didn't ask me for any money. Okay. As I said, if he asked Mother for some, then I don't know about that. That he came through to visit me, and Mother was there and my stepfather, but he didn't ask for anything. Okay. I don't know. He didn't ask for anything, and he was his usual happy, contented self, at least as much as we could see. And it was a joy to see him, but no, I don't know where he was getting money or how. It's the first time somebody's asked me. It's the first time I've been asked that like that. Sorry. Nobody's ever asked me that before. So I guess I've been holding it in. I knew it had a great effect on me, but he's always been so upbeat. And listening to you ask me these questions, I think he's been shielding me. I didn't like him being in prison. I never have, but I've always just I guess I've just been waiting on my brother to get out of prison, thinking that one day he would. I even told him that I wanted him to come and stay with me. And I thought I might be able to protect him. I don't know how he takes it. I couldn't. I think he's been wronged. And I wonder why he of all the people has to suffer like that when so many others have been released. Even those well-known Panthers and what have you. That's why I keep wondering, did somebody purposely plant and make him the scapegoat? No. Been going through. I think he's been sparing me of some of the stuff he's. No. I tell people about him in prison because I'm not ashamed of him. But I don't want to see him there. He's spent his whole life there. I'm sorry. I've written letters. In fact, whenever he tells me to do something, I do it. I've wrote letters for Mother explaining why we thought he should be paroled. And they still don't parole him. They don't let him out. So, it bothered me. I guess you know how much it bothered me. Oh gosh. Now I've got to go see him. He hasn't let me be part of all of this. Not completely. I wish I had been. I really do. Sorry. Anyway, I just think he just turned 71, 72. He just, no, 71. And he's spent half of his life in prison. It's a waste. much to give. You're making me feel things that I didn't know is. My brother Clark. If we could go back in time. And I could talk to you. Not really knowing all the things you were doing. I would try to tell you to remember your upbringing, remember your mother, and your sister, and how much we love you, and how smart you are, and how you should not really let yourself get into things that may not be the best for you. Not everybody out there loves you like we do. You're not a dummy. You were young, and you probably got into a lot of things you wouldn't have ordinarily. But you do know right from wrong. You do know when people are trying to misuse you. You don't really need all those other people. All blacks have suffered one way or another. You've done a lot of good, but in doing your good, you don't want to get yourself into trouble. So think first before you do something. Think about the people you're with. Are they for your best interests? Remember that there's a life after this life. And you want to be able, we've always been Christians, and you want to go to heaven. You know. I've sent him materials to study. Make him think about, even though he's now in prison, he can still do what's right. And in your heart, I know you know what you did or what you did not do, no matter what other people said you did. And I'm glad that you're not getting into trouble in prison like you were, and being sent away. I don't know what they call it. I can't even think what they call it when they put you in solitary. Because that always bothered me. I never knew how long he was there, how big the little place was that he was in. If they fed him while he was in there, if they mistreated him by beating him, what have you. It's just not the kind of life I want to see my brother have. I wish now they'd tell me more. And then it should make us back. I might have been able to help. I'm hurting. Your mother was hurting, but it wasn't because we didn't love you. We just didn't want to see you get into trouble, whether it's your fault or somebody else's fault. We know that you have the capability of thinking things through. You've never been bad. You've
always been concerned about other folk. Maybe you didn't think about yourself enough. I just wish you had talked to me. Talk to me like we used to do. Oh gosh. I miss you. Even when I go to buy your birthday cards, there's some I can't even buy because we haven't been together so long. All the little things it says about family, about the fun family has. We haven't had that experience in a long time. I want you out. Want you out. I've been a good sister. I certainly appreciate Dawn now. Oh, but I wish this had happened a long time ago. No, somebody believes in this. It's never too late. It's never too late. But I want that day to come. And I can see you on free ground. Walking. Talking and laughing. Hugging. I want it to happen before your mother leaves here. You were always a favorite, and that didn't bother me. Because I loved you too much. I don't even know what Don is asking for. She's got to love you an awful lot. And I love her. Clark, this is your mother talking to you. The mother who brought you into this world and loved you more than any mother could ever love a son. I gave you my all, whatever I could do for you. I remember those days. He had pneumonia 7 times. And after about the 3rd time, the doctor says, he's not going to make it. Let him alone. And she said, no, this is my son. And like a poem that I'm seeing in the back of my mind. She was bending over him, taking care of him, warming him, treating him, giving him medicine, making sure that her son lived. As I said, I knew he was her favorite. There isn't anything she wouldn't do for him. And she did everything that she could, that a mother could. And she hurt. She hurt without sharing with anybody. So she would have just told him to remember all the things that I've tried to teach you. Remember that you're the only son that I have. And if something happens to you, I don't know if I could live without you. And as I said, all the sickness that she suffered because of him, because she loved him so much. And she would keep telling him, I did what I could. I did everything that I could for you. Don't let me down. Don't let yourself down. you've got a brain. You've got a good mind. You can do anything in this world that you want to do. She said, all your life, you've been a good son, a typical son in the fun things that boys do. She even spanked him, gave him his last spanking the summer after his freshman year in college. We came home, we were the college kids, and he went down to a little store, just devilish, and rearranged some things that the man had at his little grocery store. And of course the man was upset. And Mother brought him back and spanked him right there in front of the man. But she did it because she loved him, and she knew that he really knew better. But she wanted him to be the best that he could be in everything. And so she would look at him on the day before. She would simply say to him, I love you. I always have. And I want to love you the rest of your life. I want to be proud of my son. Not that I'm not proud, but I just don't want you to get into trouble. And she would hug him. And she would hug him for a long time. And she would promise him anything that he needed, that she would get it for him if she could. And just remember to be a good boy. First of all, my brother Clark is a very likable person. And even though people haven't seen him for years, they remember the days that they did see him and they were around him. And when I do see people, many are surprised that he's still in prison. And then there are others who like me, don't really know what to do. But I have had some people have me put them on his visitors list so they could go and talk to him. And they've asked for his telephone number to talk to him, and the address, so they could write him and just see what they could do. But most people just don't know what or how. It's deeper than our understanding of this world that we live in and the system that he's in, why certain things happen. But they've tried to keep contact. And I don't really know how many actually visited, but I know they wanted to. And I told them they'd have to get on the list like anyone else, and I know he can put them on temporarily. But even when I went to Prairie View this past 2 years, 2006, there were people who still missed him, probably missed him more than they missed me. And they asked about him, and I told them that he has maintained this composure. And that's probably from feeling that he's just not going to let the system get him for something that he's not responsible for. And they've written, one or two have written me actually since, I guess I could have brought you the letter, since I left Prairie View in 2006. And just want to know how he's doing. That was one of the reasons I put his picture in the book, in that little souvenir book. I didn't know whether many people would remember him, but they do. And they have sympathy for him. But who can help him but you? I don't know. You've done more than anybody. I know he appreciates it. I know he does. So they're just kind of like me, at a loss. He laughs a lot. He does. He laughs when I tell him not to use his money to come. I said, that's one thing I can do at least accept calls from me and pay for them. We laugh when we talk about his two daughters because he knows that they're very different. And I'll tell him how one responded to an incident and the other did it just the opposite. He laughs when I talk about his nieces, and he wants to know everything that they're doing. And I have one grandson, so he's into that. He used to laugh when I talked to him about Mother, because he'd call her, he had some little nickname for the old battle axe or something, but it was all in love. But now that she's ill, or more ill, if there's such a term, and he doesn't laugh as much. I mean, he's eager to know what's going on with her. He laughs at me when I tell him about things that I've done, or things that I can't do, or I haven't learned, or what have you. And then when he tells me about the things that he does in prison, like some of the games, I think he was captain of the basketball team or the manager or whatever they call him in there, the name they gave themselves, but he was over some sports teams. And he would share things with me and how they would have fun or how he'd have to get on them. And so almost every time we talk, there's more laughter than sadness. When he is sad, that's when I have to ask him, has he undergone some kind of problem? Have they put him in that little doorway or whatever, or has somebody been mean to him? And he doesn't really ever say yes, but and then it doesn't last long, because our little 15 minutes are up. He says, you're going to hear the beep, you're going to hear the beep. I said, that's okay, we'll talk until they cut us off. But I would say if I had to give it a percentage, he is truly 95% positive and happy, more so than being negative, sad, complaining, angry. And that's just amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing. But I love him, and I tell him as much as I can. I even tell him that when he does get up, he's got a home, he's got a room. I'm going to introduce him to the world again, all the things that he thinks he knows about. And that I'll actually show him these things. And I went traveling this past summer. I went to Australia and New Zealand. So he said, I want pictures. I want to know what it's like. He's still curious. He still feels like he's on top of everything. And so I took a few pictures and shared. It was winter time there. I told him it snowed on me. And of course, I don't know when it snowed. I probably was 5 years of age when it snowed before. But then I showed him, the girl I went with and how she was more of a problem than a big help. But we made it. And the things that I brought back. And I told him I could live in Australia. I really could. And I think he told me that he had been there once. He didn't seem to have stayed long, but he said he liked it even then when he went. And so we laugh the whole time we're talking, and it bothers me when those little voices come in on the telephone. You've got such and such time. Or I said, just move away and let us talk and enjoy it. And then they hang up. I have to wait for the next calls. We'll go. I think it's usually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that we'll go. We'll go in as early as we can And we just stay until we have to go, and then we'll go back the next day. And I was very appreciative of the people in charge. I think it was two visits before, when we made it all the way there. And when we got there, we realized Mother didn't have her ID. And they could have made her sit outside, which meant one of us would have had to sit with her. But they knew that she was his mother, and they also knew that she had a little problem. So they didn't deny her from seeing her son. So we enjoyed that. I wrote them a letter afterwards. I took the names of the two men who were responsible, and I asked that they be thanked and be recognized for doing something good like that, because we didn't know if she would ever make it back. But when we go to visit him, he just eats the whole time we're there. We have to make sure we're taking plenty of dollars and whatever to feed him out of the machines and that kind of thing. So he seems to enjoy that. And I even ask him, I says, "Are they feeding you here?" But he eats all of them, and the little sandwiches and the drinks and the chips, and we just eat all day long, and take pictures. Got lots of pictures. So, and he's on every picture, he's smiling as though he's on top of the world. It's just wonderful. Because just like he's been in prison, someone put him there. I know there are people out there who still don't like him or probably would like to see him stay in prison. So that's why I wanted him to come and stay with me. In whatever way I could help him or protect him or save him, I would. I wouldn't want him pinned up like being in prison, but I would want him to be safe and secure, and yet reacquaint himself with the family and with the world and the things that are there. But in the back of my mind, I've thought that he would be unsafe to a degree. I have. I don't know where they would come from or exactly who they would be, but I would try to do as much as I could for him. And even if we had to move or whatever, I would do that too. I knew that he had a fan base. I didn't know how big it was, but as I said, it has always been part of him. Just part of his personality, his nature, his whole being, to be warm, friendly, helpful. So that now that he's involved with fighting for freedom doesn't surprise me. And I'm sure that everywhere he's reached out or had a chance to reach out, there are these people who are following. Those people wouldn't bother me. I mean, I could have them all in the house at one time. It wouldn't bother me. It's just that in the back of my mind, I've always felt that of the things that he's done, there are those people still out there who would be wanting to hurt him. And that would be my greatest fear.